Okay, we're here. We're really here. It's really happened. And we're with two very important guys, the CEO of Hawaiian Electric and the CEO of NextEra. That's Alan Oshima and Eric Gleason. Thank you very much for being here, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
Great. We are honored and thrilled that you're here. And Sharon Moriwaki, I speak for her also. She's co-chair of the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum and co-host today.
Great.
Okay, so
Welcome.
Thank you.
yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, so I mean, we were talking a minute ago, and you know, my conclusion personally is that this is the biggest deal that has happened since statehood, and sometimes I wonder if it's you know, even bigger than that. And can you think of anything that comes close? Really, it's going to change our lives, you know, for the better, in my opinion. Yeah.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. So if you guys are in the mix of it now, for sure, we are in the process, so to speak. And in case you're wondering how long it's going to take 18 months. And that's that. And in the process, there are hundreds of document requests and information requests going on.
Yes.
I guess I'm happy to find that the PUC is not going to allow cross information requests, because that would be, what shall I
Take
say?
more than 18 months, that's for sure.
Yeah, that would be the Ringling Brothers model to have all that going on. So that's good. But you know, I wanted to ask you about the deal, so you know, to inform people what's going on, to you know, try to figure out what the differentials are, how you see it going forward. So this is very important for the Energy Policy Forum, and I think for the public also, because I'm a member.
Especially for the public, because a lot of that, what happens in PUC, is very much by those who are really involved. It's not for the public and understanding what is the deal, how does it impact me, and what can I do about it if I do have concerns. So I think it's really important to get that message out and have this discussion. So thank you.
So whether the federal, what is it, Federal Regulatory Commission approved this thing with so much of a snap of the fingers, we have different process in the state.
And different issues before each body, right? So,
yeah. Well, tell us the nature of the deal. I mean, in general terms, what's the deal between you guys?
What is the deal?
I thought you knew.
You want me to go first, or you want to go first?
Go ahead.
You know, NextEra made us an offer that we really had to study very carefully. And in the end, on December 3rd, the board voted unanimously to accept the offer. But that was with a lot of background due diligence, a lot of careful thinking, and not only looking out for the shareholder, which is one of the primary responsibilities of the board as a fiduciary responsibility, but having passed the shareholder test and really looking also at the customer, the community, and the employees. So all of those things had to be really considered before the board decided to accept the offer.
Why is this interesting to Hawaiian Electric?
You know, Hawaiian Electric was not, and we want to be very clear about this, we were not looking for a buyer. We were not for sale. Clearly, I think we have our challenges. We are 5 separate, very small grids. I mean, people think of us as large in Hawaii, but compared to, as you know, on the mainland or elsewhere, our utility is a relatively small utility, separated by miles of ocean between all 5 separate island grids. So we have our challenges. Economies of scale are not present. We're geographically isolated, 2,400 miles to the nearest other populated landmass. So I think in terms of what it brings to us as a utility are some economies of scale, access to cheaper capital, and expertise and technology, all of which we think are very, very important for us to move forward.
It's interesting because Hawaiian Electric is one of the biggest maybe the biggest company in the state. And you know, we've all grown up with the notion that it is big. Now, you know, in the 21st century, we're talking globalism everywhere. We find that maybe it isn't so big, and that you know, the development, the evolution of power companies, utilities, has made it relatively small.
Yes.
And we, in order to avoid backwater, in order to keep up, so to speak, with national trends in utilities, we have to look offshore. This is the subject of an article I wrote in the program we did a couple of weeks ago at Laniakea about offshore investment.
I just want to make one slight tweak to that. I think you're absolutely right. I want, and I know that Eric fully supports this, and that is that in some sense, we are small, and that has made us, due to public policy in Hawaii, the leader in renewable energy. So I think that's often forgotten in the local context. On the mainland, I think people appreciate that our relatively small utility has been very adaptive to the new challenges of renewable energy. But from our perspective, we, NextEra and Hawaiian Electric, are fully committed to, 100% renewable future for Hawaii. But for us, we think a partner like NextEra gets us there faster.
So now, I asked you how Hawaiian Electric felt about it. Why it was interesting to want, but in the bottom line, Hawaiian Electric doesn't get the $3.4 billion. The shareholders get that, right? And there's a stock switch.
Yes.
And a merger, is it a merger or an acquisition? How would you cast it?
Well, it's technically called a merger.
It is legally a merger. Some would say it's an acquisition because it's a larger company and a smaller company combining. We generally refer to it as a combination or a merger, because really the thinking behind it, the feeling behind it is we're combining the best of both companies.
Okay. When you say generally refer to it, this is not something you haven't done before.
You're talking about
has
me
entered
personally?
you NextEra.
Yes, this is not our first time looking at potential mergers or acquisitions.
Okay.
That's true.
You've been acquisitive over the past decade or so.
Actually, the vast majority of our growth has been just through finding
Internal.
investment opportunities and what we call greenfield growth. Yeah,
In
or
terms-
investing in ourselves.
In terms of that, what made you, I know you said it in public, that you want to be #1 in renewables, but what made you focus on this small little Hawaii, and what was so attractive about it that, you came all these thousands of miles over here?
Hawaii is a special place. That's the first thing. So you don't have to spend a lot of time here to realize that. Strategically, what's really interesting to us about Hawaii is the potential for renewable energy to displace fossil fuels. You're so dependent on oil. Everybody I talk to wants to get off of oil, and you have these incredible renewable energy resources right here.
But does this mean that are you saying that you could learn from what Alan was talking about, this first adopter mentality we have here, that you could take this, the tips and tricks for how this is done and apply them back on the mainland? Is it a laboratory, an experiment? How do you see the NextEra and renewable energy combination?
So I wouldn't characterize it as a laboratory or experiment. We can't get this wrong. I would say the starting point for us was we're a clean energy company. We're a major player in renewable energy, and we also have some history of getting off of oil. And when we looked at Hawaiian Electric and we looked at Hawaii, we said, here's an opportunity to use some of the strengths that we have. Granted that Hawaii is not Florida, not the other places that we've been. There'll be differences, but there are some strengths that we bring to the table. And at the same time, yes, for sure, there will be some learnings because, as Alan has said, Hawaiian Electric in a lot of ways is already an industry pioneer. And so there are some techniques, some approaches, some technologies that are going to be employed first here, that are being employed here first, that we'll learn from as well.
So, but I guess at the end of the day, you wouldn't make a move like this unless there was an economic incentive somehow. And that means your shareholders, get a merger kind of change in the ownership of the stock and all that. And ideally, or hypothetically, they would have agreed that this is a profitable deal for them. How does that work? How important is that? And I'm talking about an article in today's paper indicating that NextEra, has made good profit this quarter. Where does it all fit? Where's the profit motive here?
So we do anticipate earning a reasonable return on our investment. If that weren't the case, we would not have been exercising our fiduciary responsibility.
Now, you wouldn't go into a deal knowing it was going to be a loss.
Right, exactly. You can't do that. Our shareholders actually, just to be clear, didn't have to vote on the deal. HEI shareholders are voting on the deal, but management made a recommendation. The board voted unanimously in favor of the deal, in large part because they really like the strategic rationale, and also in part because they viewed it as a reasonable investment for our shareholders.
Okay. Well, so how's it going to? How did you reach the 3.4 billion? Is there a way you reach a number like that, or is it involve flipping a coin in some way? How do you do that?
So it's actually 4.3, but I want you on our negotiating
I know
team
what
next
Eric
time.
Dirksen used to say, a billion here, a billion there, after a while it adds up to real money.
Yes. So there's a lot that goes into that. I probably don't have anything to add other than what we've publicly disclosed, other than to say, and I think we've said this before, that they did a good job negotiating with us.
Okay. How do you feel about that, Alan?
Well, I think the market will attest to it, and our shareholders will decide whether it was a good deal for the shareholders, and the PUC will decide whether it's a good deal for Hawaii.
Well, but the price itself isn't something the PUC need to be concerned about. It's really the effect on public interest, Jen.
That's correct. And don't forget, and I don't want to take away from this, that part of the deal is that we get to spin off American Savings Bank, which is, about a 1/3 part of Hawaiian Electric Industries, and has been such a great partner to the utility in providing financial backing so that the utility could get access to capital, pay dividends, and really invest.
So how does that work, Alan? So you say spin off. Who spins it off? Does Hawaiian Electric spin it off?
Yes.
So it's still yours after the deal closes. You still own?
No.
American Savings?
No, at closing, American Savings Bank will be spun off as a separate standalone Hawaii bank. And so our HEI shareholders will get stock in NextEra and stock in American Savings Bank, the equivalent value of which would be the purchase price of what NextEra is offering to the shareholders.
So what's your preliminary, feedback from stockholders? Do they like this deal? Do you think you're going to get so it's coming soon, isn't it, the 75% vote?
Do you have wood?
This is all wood.
This is wood? Yes, I'm hoping. I mean, I'm a shareholder. Talked to, a few of my friends and relatives who are shareholders and our employees, and I think people are favorable to the deal.
Okay.
May 12th.
May 12th, gee.
It's right around the
That's
corner.
a couple of weeks. Yeah,
Get your vote in.
yeah, well, if I'd been smart, I would have bought stock. Okay, so, executives. There may be no deal on this, but I'd like to know at least how you see it going down the road. You're going to stay around? Is Connie Lau going to stay around? New executives going to come from the mainland, Florida? What's your situation, actually, Eric? You can be around.
Who do you want to go first?
And what role does Sharon have?
We'll all be around. I think Connie will, as executive of Hawaiian Electric Industries, won't be around because that will no longer exist. The top execs at Hawaiian Electric Industries will not be, there's no corporation left for them at the end of the deal. Hawaiian Electric Company, Maui Electric, and Hawaii Electric Light, as 3 Hawaii corporations, remain as is, now, however, owned by NextEra rather than Hawaii Electric Industries. American Savings Bank remains as a separate Hawaii corporation, but now as a standalone.
So the 3 companies will be subsidiaries under NextEra. How does that work? Or it's just a company, and these are 3
Maui Electric
companies?
and Hawaii Electric Light are subsidiaries of Hawaiian Electric, so they will remain in that structure. Hawaiian Electric, as a body, will become a subsidiary of NextEra, just like Florida Power and Light and NextEra Energy Resources.
So you'll be in charge.
You'll stay here, Eric.
No, actually, my commitment to this point is I'm staying here through the close of the deal. That's my role. Now, whether I may be staying on beyond that, we haven't made a decision.
Okay.
And to answer your original question, part of the answer is no decisions have actually been made about the management, other than Hawaiian Electric is going to continue to be locally managed. What that means is the management team is going to be based here. The president and CEO of Hawaiian Electric is going to be reporting to Jim Robo, our chairman and CEO. Hawaiian Electric will be one of now 3 principal businesses of NextEra Energy. And of course, we recognize that to be successful in Hawaii, you need not only locally based management, but very much Hawaii, people who are from Hawaii. So you should, I do not anticipate, while no final decisions have been made, I don't anticipate a very significant influx of folks from Florida.
Not jinxing the process, but what happens, because I had heard that, it has to be the 18 months or else. What happens if it takes a little bit longer? Is there a commitment still that this is really important? We like this, we'll work it through?
Can we hold that question? Can we take a break?
Okay. Oh, great.
Everybody will remember the question. Okay.
If you feel so inclined.
This is Alan Oshima, CEO of Hawaiian Electric, Eric Gleason, CEO of NextEra. They made a deal. We're talking about the deal, how it flows and ebbs and changes and teaches us so many things. Okay, we'll be right back after this short break.
Inspired by an ancient culture, classical Chinese dance, vigorous physicality, timeless stories, 5,000 years of Chinese music and dance, Shen Yun presents authentic Chinese culture. Coming to Blaisdell Concert Hall, May 8th and 9th. Tickets at shenyun.com or call 808-792-3919.
Ted Ralston, folks, host of our show at ThinkTech Hawaii called Where the Road Leads, where we talk about technology influencing the future of Hawaii. Technology, of course, is the art of solving problems. We always bring in interesting and informed guests who can see from different perspectives and different points of view how that future might unfold and how technology can assist us in getting there. So once again, join us 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock on Fridays. Ted Ralston, your host. And please, if you have ideas that you'd like us to address on this show or folks who you think should be on it, let us know.
Okay, we're back. It's Wednesday. It's Hawaii, the state of clean energy. Here with Alan Oshima, CEO of Hawaiian Electric, and Eric Gleason, CEO of NextEra, with this really important show. My co-host, Sharon Moriwaki, and where we have the opportunity to ask these guys questions about the biggest deal that Hawaii has ever had. So Sharon, you had a question, a cliffhanger.
Cliffhanger. I just wanted to know the 18 months has been sort of the underlying foundation of what's going to happen and when. And I just wondered what happens if, on the 18th month, 2 days later, what happens if it in fact is a deal breaker, or what's happening? What would happen? Just a surmise. What would happen?
Okay, from Hawaiian Electric standpoint, I don't think we want to speculate what might happen, because we're really hoping that the 18 months is sufficient time for the state to make a decision on this deal. Other states have done so in shorter time periods or about the same. So we think that's adequate time, and probably not good to speculate what may or may not happen.
And we won't speculate, but the one thing just to point out is after 18 months, neither party is obligated to move forward with the transaction.
So it is an important time frame.
Well, that's what makes this deal so interesting. One of the questions that I was going to ask you, which actually came in by way of a Twitter question, which I'll give you the Twitter version of it, has to do with, what happens, hypothetically, if for any reason, we can explore what the reasons might be, the deal fails. If it fails, what happens? And the way this guy put the question, which is worth reading, this is at Blake McElhaney, that's the Twitter handle. Here's a question: how would the public be harmed if NextEra does not purchase Hawaiian Electric? Specific ways that customers would be harmed. And let me add to you, what I had in my mind is, if you roll this all back and you just make believe the deal never happened, and you go back to square one after 18 months, where are we? And what kind of result to the public? I know it's not good, but I'd like your view of the matter.
I'd like your
I think it's equal.
We never promised you guys a rose garden.
From our viewpoint, we've never taken it for granted that approvals would be granted. I mean, I think you just can't. And so you have to approach this from, you know, the Plan B scenario. Although we're very, very optimistic that approvals will be granted because we think the substance of the deal supports it. We are proceeding with our transformation, as you know, to be better able to serve the needs of our customers and as we move on and really be more innovation specific, more customer centric, more metrics driven, all of the above, which really aligns with NextEra. Having said that, if the deal doesn't go through, then we will continue to be the utility we are. We will do the best we can with what we have, and I'm hopefully with a better alignment towards the customers and innovation. I think the customers will be harmed to the extent that the things that we're able to do in the process will come at a higher cost, just economies of scale, purchasing power, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I like to say that, you know, when you have economies of scale, even things like that we purchase, I've been recently saying that we're shopping at the corner grocery store just because of our size, and they're shopping at Costco, and we want to shop. We want to get the membership to Costco, the bulk purchasing power that they can bring. There are operating efficiencies that come about through technology, through purchasing power, lower cost of capital. So we feel it does bring value to the customers, but that's looking at it from an opportunistic standpoint. We will continue, but I don't think we will be able to move there as fast or as readily.
Yeah. Well, you know, a couple of other elements is that, you know, before this deal happened, it wasn't too long ago, we were having all this consternation about solar interconnect and all this, which, I mean, I guess I'd add to the question, you know, this 18 months is not business as usual because of the enormity of the deal. And if it, you know, you can't move in the same way. You're sort of strapped a little by the deal. If you want to disagree, it's okay. But my perception would be is everybody's focused on that now. And, you know, you are a reflection of how the community thinks, and it's a distraction at least, isn't it?
No. Well, at least it is a distraction. And it does occupy our time. I would not be honest if I said otherwise. I mean, we are having to answer with NextEra, cooperating, you know, all of our teams are working on IR responses, public meetings with the public, all of which are great. I mean, it's good to get all of that out, but it does take time, effort, and the same people who are doing all of this would otherwise be working on other things. That being said, though, I don't think that we are ignoring our other work to get this done. It's just that we're having to work double time to get it done.
Yeah, I can imagine. So turning to you, Eric, you know, seems like you know, one of the elements here is that, and I guess in any transaction like this, you believe at some level that you can manage this company in a way that will return the profit, you know, the return you want. And in some ways, is inherent in that the notion that you can manage it better. So I'd like your thought about that, whether you agree or disagree with it. And I'd like to know, you know, what you think would happen if, as I said before to Alan, the deal didn't close. What would happen for the lack of your management capability?
So I guess I don't quite agree with the way you've set it up. The way we look at it is not that we can manage it better, but rather that we bring some resources to bear that Hawaiian Electric doesn't have on its own. And so we can help Hawaiian Electric become more successful in that way. And in terms of what happens if the deal falls through, and what does that mean for Hawaiian Electric, I agree with the way Alan framed it. I think it's hard not to become distracted when you're the management team of a company that's going through a merger.
Sure.
It's hard not to. I think they're doing a very good job of that. We're trying to be helpful of that. We actually have agreed from even before the merger was announced that we were going to approach all the planning, the planning as to how the companies would work together once the deal is closed, that we would approach that in a way that it's not obtrusive on Hawaiian Electric, because we want to support all the good work they're doing around their transformation. So together we're working very hard to minimize the distraction. And I think the cost, and I think there is a cost to Hawaii of this combination not happening, but it's what you know, the economists call an opportunity cost, right? It's something that, it's benefits that could happen for Hawaii that won't happen. And I think it's incumbent upon us in this PUC review process to make those benefits clear.
Let me just ask one question,
Let me
sir.
just
Oh,
ask this
okay.
one.
We want to get it.
Yeah, you see how your interest are. We are so excited about you. But following close on that is, you know, at some point, at some level of tension, if you will, NextEra might decide not to do it. And I assume that's in the deal somewhere. I mean, for example, if you find that the PUC is going to impose conditions that are really unacceptable, at some point, you know, you got to have a way out. And at that point, there's no deal. But I just wonder. And by the way, and I saw a video of you engaging with Walter Riddy that was really special in Molokai. This was just before or after he was doing his thing in the 30-meter telescope in the Big Island.
How was it special?
What, Walter?
Yeah. I mean, I actually really enjoyed the engagement with Walter, and I listened
Well, my
respectfully
favorite
to
part was where he talked about the Committee of Safety and wanted to review the history of Hawaiian Electric. And apparently he referred to a member of the founding board of Hawaiian Electric, was on the Committee of Safety back in 1890, whatever it was, and took a steamship, you remember this?
I do, yes.
To San Francisco to buy rifles. And this is something we want to hold against everyone.
Yes.
But, you know, I mean, that kind of experience, I'm sure it wasn't, you know, terribly engaging.
I actually really enjoyed the discussion with Walter.
But if you have this, you know, if you have this kind of pushback, at some point, you may decide that it ain't worth it. Where are we on that?
Yeah.
And what is the point, if there is a point?
Well, I just want to say again, for Walter, I think what he was trying to do was share some perspectives with us, and I didn't actually take it as critical of us. So that was, I mean, we appreciated his perspective. The merger agreement is, I'm not a lawyer. I've read it many times. It's actually kind of hard to give you a very clear answer as to between now and the 18 months, under what circumstances either party could, you know, potentially walk away from the deal. I couldn't even answer that for you. I'd need a lawyer to do it. After the 18 months, it's pretty clear. Neither party is obligated to move forward.
Okay, I see.
And in terms of, you know, look, we knew coming in that that Hawaii's had some bad history with companies, organizations coming from outside, individuals coming from outside, and not necessarily doing the right thing for Hawaii, or for whatever reason things not working out. And so we came into this knowing and embracing that people are going to have a lot of questions and going to want to share a lot of perspectives, and we're very open to that. So that doesn't, you know, kind of turn us off in any way. You know, let's go through the PUC process, and I think we're optimistic that, you know, the benefits will become apparent over time.
But let me jump in here, because I don't want people to think that one meeting constituted our public outreach. So we did 13 public open houses, 4 on Hawaii Island, 3 or 4 on Maui, 4 on Oahu, 1 each on Molokai and Lanai. And overwhelmingly, the response was good. And people asked really good questions and had long discussions. Because of our format, we did it in an open house style with a lot of people from NextEra and Hawaiian Electric present, so they could engage in deeper conversations. So some of our conversations lasted 20, 30, even an hour, getting really deep on some issues that really concern people. And so people submitted comments to the PUC because we had comment cards. And some actually came away saying that we really liked the format, our questions were answered, and you know, we look forward to the deal.
That's great.
So I mean, it's not. I want to frame it that there was, I think, more positive out of the outreach and people actually meeting the NextEra people than there were negative.
Will you do it again?
Oh, please. We are doing it not in that same format, but the PUC will start on their own
do their own thing.
process.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we wanted to be able to, Frank, there was another reason for this. NextEra brought their team from Florida to meet our employees. So while we were doing these open houses at night with the community, during the day we were doing these open houses with our employees so that they put faces with NextEra, and it's not just something they're reading in a paper. And
Socialization. Yeah.
well, you know, Hawaii's a relationship-driven
Yep,
culture.
relationship, yeah.
And overwhelmingly, the response from our employees who met Eric's team are very positive, and they say, you know, these are nice people, and we can work with them.
That's good.
I think one of the things that you've done is we talk about
Is this the question you wanted to ask before?
No, this is another one because what Alan is saying. But I think that Hawaii is so relationship driven because it's small, that what you've done with management, with both NextEra and HEI-NextEra going out and talking to the community is really important. So you know, Jay asking, oh, you're going to do it again? I think in some form that really is good annually to go out and just be there, you know, with the people, knowing what's happening.
And the open house format, I said even at our last of our employee meetings, was that something that we should do internally on a regular basis rather than somebody standing in front of employees going one way. We ought to be doing a lot of, so that we can have more in-depth conversation, not just somebody standing in front of a mic and everybody else listening.
Yeah, it's relationships. I know you had a question.
I did.
And I'm going to make that another cliffhanger.
You're always asking me after the commercial break.
You get to start.
That's because everybody is waiting to hear. That's Sharon Moriwaki. She has a question. That's Alan Oshima, CEO of Hawaiian Electric, Eric Gleason, CEO of NextEra. This is ThinkTech Hawaii. We're talking about the biggest deal that Hawaii has ever seen. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Ethan Allen. I host Likeable Science on ThinkTech Hawaii, and I do this because I care about science literacy in Hawaii. I want to spread the understanding that science is a vital and interesting part of everyone's life. I want to make sure the broadest possible spectrum of people understand the beauty and the value of science and realize that science plays out each and every day of their lives. I want you to understand that science is fun. So we bring onto this show each week guests who are scientists, from astronomers to zoologists, and we talk about what they do and how they do it. But most importantly, we talk about why you should care about their work, why you should see that their work has value and impact on your life. So I hope you'll join us Fridays, 1 p.m. here on ThinkTech Hawaii. You can watch us via live stream. You can watch us recorded on Olelo, and you can see us each week. We hope you'll join us.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here with Alan Oshima and Eric Gleason talking about the NextEra Hawaiian Electric deal. And as we left the exciting discussion, Sharon had a question. We don't know what it is yet, but everybody is waiting on it.
I did, because I was most interested when Eric was talking about, working with HEI-NextEra and seeing what they could bring to the party. What exactly did you look at? You looked at their books, you looked at what they're doing. What did you see that you could really add value that's not happening without you?
So I think there's a lot of things. It's not that Hawaiian Electric wasn't doing everything they could with what they had. It's that, and I'll step back and give you a little bit of my background. Before I joined NextEra 4 years ago, I worked in a smaller utility, about the same size as Hawaiian Electric, and we had a fraction of the initiatives, I'll call it, underway that Hawaiian Electric had. And it's a real challenge to do everything that you need to do and do it to the best of your ability and do it in a timely way. And I don't know of a utility anywhere in the industry that has as many initiatives ongoing as Hawaiian Electric does, with about 3,000 people. And so we look at it as, here's a company that's, the key player in the energy sector in Hawaii, which has enormous opportunities and challenges. Get off of oil, bring in renewable energy, leverage technology, get rates down, find new ways to satisfy customers. And we bring a lot of resources to the table that can help them, whether it's driving down costs, or whether it's technology based, or it's just resources. So it wasn't one or two things. It was more of look at their needs and look at what we bring to the table. Isn't that a good fit?
I remember being in one hearing or another on this, and one of the legislators involved said, so tell us your plan. Tell us everything. Give us A, B, C, D. I mean, can you have a plan in this circumstance about exactly what you're going to do? I mean, for example, if I say, are you going to do LNG? If I say, are you going to, favor utility scale solar and wind over rooftop? What are your, do you have planning points like this? Do you have a plan? Have you hammered something out? Is it part of the deal? Is it part of NextEra's approach? Or is this something that you will examine later? What's the story?
So, first of all, our starting point is we want to do the right thing for customers, whatever it is, on any of these various projects that people are talking about, or just overall in terms of how the business works going forward. People do tend to think that, look, it's a $4.3 billion deal. Surely there's a detailed plan around what power plant you want to put there, and what widgets you want to put in over there. That's not actually how these things work. They actually have a pretty detailed plan, which is the power supply improvement plans and their distributed generation interconnection plans, which are being reviewed by the Commission now and continue to evolve.
Hasn't been approved though yet.
Not approved.
No.
So this is kind of up in the air in general.
Still in process, huh?
Yes, but it's what we have, and I think people are working off of that. So finally, based upon the Commission's insistence that we do something, concrete, the great thing is that people are working off the same framework in looking at the future, and that's great. And we have to too. So in the past, things were on different tracks, and now it's looked holistically. The hearing that you were referring to, I was just remembering, was the day before we were going to file our PUC application on the deal. And so we couldn't talk about, and again, because it's two publicly traded companies, you can't forecast certain kinds of things in public. And so even when we filed our application, that had to be filed with the PUC, for example. So that's why we're sort of constrained in getting to a lot of deals before the legislative committee. They revealed themselves in the application the next day as a starting point for how we proceed in the docket. So there's nothing, we continue to say our PSIPs were the starting point of the discussion.
That's where we are, because the deal isn't a deal until the deal closes.
But it's a good starting point, and we're using it as a basis to talk to our stakeholders, et cetera. And we use the DGIP for the same reason. And the Commission recently just issued their distributed energy resources order, and we're hard at work with our stakeholders, the solar industry, others in the RS.
You're still reducing the number of applications for interconnection. Last time we spoke, you knocked it down by a substantial number.
We did. We cleared the queue that existed as of October. And since that time, the queue has built up again because it does, and people are looking at deadlines, trying to beat the solar tax credits, et cetera.
Well, the federal is going to go down at the end of 2016.
2016. And then what we did on our own was to file what we called our transitional distributed generation motion with the Commission, and that caught everyone's attention and thought we were going to immediately change things. So there was a spike in the number of applications, a big spike. And so we're having to work through that. We still have the same number of people. We can't do everything at once. We are who we are. And so, yeah, we continue to work on all of that.
Well, one thing that comes to mind is, sorry, Sharon.
No, go ahead.
I'll buy her a
We
coffee
have to come back.
We're still going to be friends. People have asked you, Eric, what you're going to do.
Yeah.
How are you going to make it right? I mean, I know there are information requests that go on for hundreds of pages on this. And I know that must be very hard to answer because, as you said a minute ago, this is a work in progress at best about exactly what you're going to do. But, and we talk about 4.3, I did get that figure right. 4.3 billion, but that's really for the deal, not for capital investment per se.
Right.
So does NextEra have any idea in mind about what it would invest, post-deal investment?
So we have their power supply improvement plans, which, as Alan has said, are under review. They're a work in progress, but they're a starting point, and those show total capital expenditures across the 3 Hawaiian Electric utilities. I think I'm right, of $8.4 billion from 2015 to 2030. So that's a placeholder for the kind of capital investment we're talking about. Whether that's the right answer, whether or not the utility is going to do all that, I really don't know. But I think it's pretty clear that unless someone comes up with a radical new way to produce and deliver electricity that we're not aware of, that for Hawaiian Electric to deliver cleaner, more affordable, and reliable power, there's going to be a large amount of capital investment, and that part of the value we bring is being able to make those investments more cheaply.
So one of the things that comes to mind in this whole conversation, I mean, we're observers only, but is, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and you have certain moduses going forward about how you're going to do it. And it's almost irresistible for the PUC to say, well, let's nail them down. let's take all of those sort of hopes and intentions, dreams and aspirations, and nail them down, and we'll make them into conditions to the deal. So how is that going, and how do you see that going as we go, from now till the end of the 18 months?
Alan, I think you are the best person to answer.
Yeah,
sorry.
Alan's been through these as a lawyer in Hawaii.
So I think you're right, and that all develops through the IR process. So all of the questions and answers that are ongoing now will help develop a framework for the consumer advocate, for the other parties, and finally for the PUC to say, well, what's right? What feels right? What is right for the state? And so I think it's too early to predict. The other part was that the commission did deny some of the other parties' motions to consolidate the PSIP with the NextEra merger, which I thought was an important thing, because the PSIP really is a technical, you require a lot of technical expertise to judge what the diverse portfolio ought to look like and when those investments should be made for the good of all customers. And so I think that's important to understand, that so some of these commitments that may be asked for in the context of the NextEra merger might be tied to the PSIP that's going on a separate track with different parties. That's part of the complexity that actually adds a lot of flavor to my life, and what makes it so much fun.
I know what you're going to ask next.
Oh, you do? Yeah, because you want to ask another question. That's
the deal includes, the whole enchilada. It includes Helco, it includes Miko, to use those old terms, it includes Oahu. But, there's the Hawaii Island Energy Co-op already, which exists without funding or members. And then there's Mayor Arakawa, who has an idea about a municipal kind of thing. I mean, how do you guys feel about that? It sounds like that gets in the way of the essential structure of the deal. Would you tolerate it, Eric? Or is it the kind of thing that makes the deal completely intolerable?
Well, Alan's shaking his head, so I don't think he's tolerating it.
No, I think all of them have recognized, and I just want to make it clear that all of them, Mayor Arakawa, Hawaii Island Energy Co-op, have made it very clear that they're not offering this as to interfere with the deal that's already structured. And I think even Richard Ha and Marco Mangelsdorf said they understand that the only deal that's before the commission is that we've signed with NextEra. And so there's nothing to sell on our side to any other entity. And so we have to see this deal through. Before Hawaii Island Energy Co-op filed their intervention, they were really, we have talked to a lot of people before and after the deal on an ongoing basis. And
it's about relationships.
Yeah, and part of what we're about now is really trying to encourage discussions. We may disagree, but let's have the discussion, and let's base it upon facts. So Richard and Marco did inform Connie and myself that they were about to file at the PUC. They were going to form this co-op, but again, saying that it was to have a place at the table. And I think that's fair. I think people ought to have a place at the table. I was the attorney that represented Hawaiian Electric on the formation of KIUC. So I know how difficult that is and all the issues that are involved. And it takes a lot of planning, a lot of commitment, and frankly, some threshold questions that have to be met to see what kinds of funding might be available, what kind of taxpayer assistance might be available for some of these things in lieu of private capital. So I think there are a lot of open questions. I don't think the debate should be during this docket, and I don't think they intend the debate to be in this docket.
No, but you know, the funny thing is that, somebody else said this, is that when you put this before the PUC, you open it up, you allow all these interveners, you have meetings on all the islands, people, you know, to them, whether it's appropriate or not, everything is on the table. And here's one question that came in from Jex Static. This is a Twitter question from JEX Static. NextEra is scary, he says. Big Island, I guess he's speaking for everybody on the Big Island. Big Island wants community-run co-op electric, not offshore corporate. Energy sovereignty, exclamation. Not to say if it's right or wrong, only to say that this is the kind of feedback that's out there, simply because everything seems to be, you know, on the table. But, you know, I agree with you absolutely. Everything can't be on the table. The question is whether they will approve the deal as in the best interests of
Public
Hawaii.
interest.
And thus, what we are really talking about is a question of public education, I think.
And I don't want to use the word education. As you know, I'm very favorable to public education as a concept, but I think it's really up to public discussion and collaboration, because I think we have to hear how people really feel. Some of these things are generated by some fears and some emotional issues that we just have to discuss and get some alignment around. When I spoke to some people at our open houses about big mainland corporations, I tried to remind them that we are in a different global environment, and that if they would just look around them and look at everything we have in Hawaii now, which of the Hawaii entities do they really think are owned in Hawaii? And you know, it's hard to name them. I mean, there are a few, yeah. But for the majority, they're either public companies owned in general by investors, or they're owned by mainland companies that are public traded. And yet, you know, we see the benefits to Hawaii. We all, you know, trade with them, use them. We think they're Hawaii because they act in the best interest of Hawaii.
Yeah, they try to.
Yeah,
they try to respect all the local norms. Yeah. So, Eric, you know, when you came into this, we met. You know, I think it was one of your first appearances together after you announced the deal, and it was great. And I wondered, you know, since then, what is this, December, I guess, has what has happened over the past 4 or 5 months been in any way a surprise to you, or was this all something that you could expect?
Yeah, I had the advantage of having come to Hawaii pretty frequently over the past 4 years, and so, you know, I knew how important, and I think Hawaii is totally off the charts compared to any place I've ever done business.
Nobody's going to disagree with that.
Right, and I'm talking
unique, not
in a lot of
off the
ways.
chart,
In a lot of ways, but you're off the charts in terms of people's engagement and passion around energy and environmental issues. Okay, I don't think there's any place in the world that compares, and so I knew that, and so I haven't. So therefore, it hasn't surprised me the level of engagement, and you know, just the co-op is just one example of this is. You know, people want to have a voice in the future of energy in this state. It's really, really important. It's actually part of what motivates us about being here. What Hawaiian Electric is doing is really important.
You know when it started in 2000?
I just want to ask
Sharon,
one
I'm
question.
backing off,
Wait,
Sharon.
okay.
I want you to ask this
okay.
question. We all do.
Okay.
Should we
No.
just let that?
No, I just do because we've talked about microgrids and everybody's talking about different permutations of how they could have more control over their energy, and you talk customer driven as well. Are there any models or ways in which you could see that kind of collaboration with microgrids or with other kinds of ways in which communities can come together? They've talked about community solar and so forth. But you know, if there is something that's not such a conglomerate of we are the big cheese and we're in charge of everything, I think that kind of thinking is on the small island scale, way in which to operate, but I don't know if that's possible. But have you any thoughts about that, of how you get more engagement of not individuals but communities coming together?
So I think all of those things are on the table, right? Whether it's communities or individuals having more options and more control around their energy use. Maybe not everybody wants it, but some do. And technology is enabling new ways of doing that. And I also think another thing that we're hearing loud and clear as we have gone around and met with folks in different communities is, and this will sound obvious to you, but coming from the mainland, I've had to really hear it, is every island's different, every community's different, and it's not one size fits all solutions, not just across from Florida to Hawaii, but even within Hawaii. So I think the Hawaiian Electric of the future, and I think Alan recognizes this and they're moving in that direction, needs to accommodate that kind of diversity.
One thing that I think is really important, though, for all of this to work, you really do need a responsible party operating the grid in the best interest of everyone. And the responsible party may turn out to be a co-op, may turn out to be a government entity, or may turn out to be us. I'm hoping it's us, but you do need that. So I think that when we all talk in terms of specific types of technologies, specific types of organizations, we're ignoring the reality, and that is we all should be working together to preserve the integrity of the grid, because without it, we don't have an economy. Without it, we don't have a lifestyle for everyone. And so what I try to impose on in the thought processes is that there are only maybe 3 or 4 entities that have the obligation to serve everyone with electric service, and that's the Public Utilities Commission, the Consumer Advocate, and the regulated utility. So we have this obligation to look out for all customers and look out for the good of Hawaii. Now, certain spin-offs could look out for one small part of it, but our hope is that they will hold hands with us to make it part of the larger energy picture so that it serves everyone in a fair and equitable way.
The public interest.
Right. Otherwise, Hawaii will not move forward.
Well, you're in a new time. It's a new leadership in the PUC, a new and huge deal.
You have a letter for me to sign?
a new legislative interest, however that is. A new public interest, beyond any level of interest we've seen in the Clean Energy Initiative so far. And I think one of the things that people forget is that this is not a deal in a vacuum, that the PUC will be regulating it going forward. Yep. It's not just a matter of nay, or conditions, it's regulation going forward. I think we have to have confidence in all the parties here. And I think it works better, the collaborative effort works better if everybody has at least a certain modicum of confidence in the other parties.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, we all are working hard on that. And I think in private, people are working really well. Public positions sometimes stray from the private conversations. And I think we all, and I guess that's my hope, is that we can stay together, because Hawaii really is the renewable energy capital of the United States. And when you're on the mainland, as Eric will attest to, people are amazed at the amount that we've been able to accomplish. But here, we kind of just criticize everything and bring us all down. But if we all work together, we could really elevate Hawaii to a higher status.
Yeah. we have to be together. We have to be a 21st century state, and we have to be connected to the mainland.
Yep.
Anyway, I want to thank Jack Static for asking a question on Twitter. I want to thank Harry Covert. I'm not sure we covered everything he wanted, but we appreciate the question. And Blake McIlhenny. Blake McIlhenny. Thank you much for asking your question about whether the public would be harmed if the deal doesn't close. And thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Alan Oshima.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sharon.
Great to have you here.
We'd love to have you back again.
We wish you well, and we hope we can have you back as we go down this path. This
Thank you.
really, really important path.
Thank you.
Thank you.